So what would make the McDonough Square such an epicenter for all the haunting going on?
There's so much history to that specific area, and a lot of the lore and allure of doing this. A lot of it centers around the train wreck of 1900 at the Camp Creek train wreck.
In June 23rd of 1900. In fact, it was so big for the area that after the Titanic sank, they called this train wreck that happened in McDonough, McDonough's Titanic. It had been raining really hard for 3 weeks by the time June 23rd came around. And Southern Railroad's number 7 train was making its way to Atlanta from Macon. And it did have a stop in McDonough. While they were waiting, the engineer was warned that perhaps he shouldn't continue on because they were afraid that the bridge may have been compromised by all the rain.
The Red Ball Express had already come across the tracks just before the number 7 left McDonough. So they figured, you know, since the Red Ball Express went through, we could get through. But when the Red Ball Express went through, it had weakened the tracks and the trestle, and they had already given way and fell into the creek.
Coming upon the bridge that fateful June night, the engineer was unable to see that the brick culvert over the creek had literally been swept from under the rails until it was too late. The train plunged into the raging water. The engine and the coaches were engulfed in flames when help first arrived, and the witnesses said, occasionally, lightning would illuminate the horror of the disaster. Survivors were taken back to McDonough that night, and by sunrise the next morning, a concentrated effort was underway to locate the victims still in the wreckage and those who had been swept downstream by the floodwaters. In total, 39 people lost their lives that night.
The bodies were brought to Henry Square, to McDonough Square, I should say, and apparently for several days the bodies actually laid out in the square while they were being identified and processed.
Several days there were corpses laid out in the square, and so a lot of people believe a tragedy like that, you know, you have the sudden death of that many people, plus you have the family members coming, they're distraught. There were, the 9 people who survived were brought to the Globe Hotel, which at the time was sitting right on the square where the McDonough Welcome Center currently stands.
They had 2 funeral homes here, which were B.B. Carmichael's funeral home and A.F. Bunn. And so they had to do makeshift coffins and lay the people out in the square to be identified while they were being taken to each mortuary to be processed.
Most of the passengers that were killed that night were not listed by name. I mean, they were listed by X number of women, X number of children traveling on the train that night. The only people who were actually listed by name were the railroad employees. So I think it's conceivable to think that someone's family died that night in that wreck and they've never been properly identified.
We actually, in the back area, we have one of 2 in the city. It's an original 1914 hand-pulled counterweight dumbwaiter that they used to take the coffins upstairs to do the embalming. And then they would bring them downstairs here for the, I guess, the funeral.
And one of the main things that seems to happen consistently is the ghost train. There is a ghost train that they'll be right there at the bridge, and they won't hear the train. All of a sudden they'll see a light. The light will get closer and closer, and of course they get off of the bridge thinking that it might be the train, and then it gets to the point where they could see whether or not it was a train, and then it'll vanish.
And I could hear a faked train noise. Sometimes people think that that's just the real train that comes through town, but this noise is definitely different. It's long, it's drawn out, it feels like an echo, and then once it gets closer and closer, all of a sudden it ceases.
Locating spirits and communicating with them isn't as easy as picking up the phone and calling, though it's not far from that. Today's technologies allow the paranormal investigator to catch glimpses into the spirit world through the use of voice recorders and cameras.
There's several different techniques that you can do. What we've had the most receptive responses on has been what is known as an EVP.
EVPs are electronic voice phenomenon, and it picks up wave energies in the air.
We've got a digital voice recorder. What's nice about this is it has pretty much unlimited recording time. There's no tapes. Really cuts out on some of the confusion of the background noise that you have on the analog tapes. Now, the analog tapes, that background noise typically in the ghost hunting industry basically says that it's helpful to have that background noise because they use those certain frequencies of the motors turning to help generate the voices of what they have known as EVPs. Are there spirits that are in this room that are trapped? Can you make a noise in this room to let us know that you're here?
Sometimes before you get the EVP, you'll hear a little click or snap, and then it just kind of blends into whatever you're recording, and then it shuts off.
We have captured voices again of names. We've captured sentences. We've captured sentences that don't make any sense to the question that we just asked. But we then, on certain occasions, we do get answers to some of our responses.
One of them said, "I died in this room." Another one that we captured said, "Oh gosh, they think we're ghosts."
Oh my gosh, they think we're ghosts. Now they heard this on the EVPs, and there's nobody else in the room whatsoever.
I will tell you that the voices that are captured on the tape recorders or on the digital audios, they are not faked. They are very clear as to what is being said, and I truly do believe that there is something out there that is trying to make communications with us.
Coming up next, you're going to hear the actual voices of the dead for yourself. We'll be right back.